Well, as soon as we have a quorum here, I will call the November 19th, 2015 Salina Board of Zoning Appeals meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of summary of minutes of the regular meeting dated October 15th of 2015. Has everyone had a chance to review those? Seeing that everyone has, do I have a motion to approve?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move a motion that we approve the summary minutes as presented from the Thursday, October 15th Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Owen? Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item 2 on the agenda is the application number V12-13A initiated by city staff on behalf of Ben and Autoplex, requesting a review and consideration of possible amendments to the conditions of approval attached to variance application V12-13, which authorized Ben and Autoplex to construct an addition with a 17-foot building setback from Ohio Street. The property address, I will not go through the whole thing there since it's been addressed before, but the address is 651 South Ohio Street here in Salina, Kansas. This is continued from the October 15th, 2015 meeting to allow an alternate site plan and landscape plan to be submitted, reviewed, and carried out on the site. We will go to staff for their report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a continuation of our previous meeting, and so I won't go through all of the history as we've gone through it multiple times. But where we left off last meeting is we had a request by the applicant to remove two 10-by-10 planters that were out on the east side of their building between the building frontage and Ohio Street. And they wanted to replace those 10-by-10 planters with the planters you see on this proposed landscaping plan on the overhead projector here. And the idea here is that these planters would replace the two that were on the approved landscape plan prior to this, and it would provide additional area between the building and Ohio Street for the applicant to display vehicles. Because previously, when the variance for this property was approved, there was a condition that restricted the display or parking of any vehicles in this area between the building and the street frontage. And so what has happened since that time is we were interested in a modified landscape plan, and they have had a landscaper that brought in to us additional plantings that show plantings in the green space on the northern portion of the property, plantings within the proposed planters that would replace the 10-by-10 planters, and then a couple of crabapple trees that would go in a 10-by-65 foot green space area between the north building and Ohio Street. So that is what the applicant has proposed as a landscape alternative. And with that, they would also, according to our last meeting, request that you would waive or lift the previous condition that parking and displaying vehicles for sale would be removed as a condition of approval of their variance. So at this point in time, staff feels as though the landscape is a step forward into meeting the intent of the landscape regulations, and we can work with the applicant to work up what we call a landscape compliance agreement, as we are getting late in the planting season, so that if the plantings could not all be installed this fall, they could be done in the spring. And we could work with them on that if the Planning Commission or if the Board of Zoning Appeals felt like they wanted to lift the requirement of the two 10-by-10 boxes and allow the proposed planters that are on the plan before you. So with that, you have a couple of options. You could approve the requested lift of that condition to allow the display of vehicles. You could postpone once again if you feel more information is needed, or you could stick with the status quo and require those 10-by-10 boxes to be put in place and to keep the restriction of display of vehicles between the building in Ohio Street. So with that, staff will take any questions.
Any questions of staff? I guess I do have a question. What is staff's opinion or feelings with regards to lifting the original requirement of no parking in that area?
Well, the first reason for the condition in 2012 was concern that coming out to within 17 feet of Ohio Street would not allow adequate display area there for vehicles without overhanging the sidewalk. That was the original rationale for that. The second rationale that occurred was on the building permit that was issued, we had two 10-by-10 planters shown that simply would not have allowed for vehicles to be displayed there. So the issue for staff was we had a building permit plan that we reviewed and approved that called for those two 10-by-10 planters to be constructed, and we could not consider anything different than that unless we received an alternate plan. And just by way of background for how this generally works in the community, obviously not all of our commercial projects or projects that involve landscaping does the timing occur neatly where it's a great time for planting. So if you had a building project that was finishing up in the middle of July, that's not usually a good time for planting, and we want landscaping to survive. So let's say you're a hotel and you want to open and have rooms for guests, but your landscaping's not complete. We will get a cost estimate from the landscaper, and they will furnish us that estimate, and then the owner of the property provides staff with a financial security or assurances that will assure the completion of the planting by some agreed upon date.
Okay.
So we are at a point of the season where it's not ideal to do any new planting. So what we're suggesting is, now that we have this plan that we have reviewed and essentially approved from landscape consultants, that we have what we need to sign off on a certificate of occupancy for the dealership facility, provided we have a compliance agreement, and then it is a discretionary decision for you as to the display. So what we've taken off the table with this alternate plan is there's two things that have changed. One, the actual setback distance is 19 feet instead of 17, so there's 2 extra feet there because the bump out only came out 4 feet and not 6 as originally planned. The second thing is, so we have the plan which we have accepted for the 2-by-7 planters that are up in the overhang of the building, which means that the planters will not interfere with the display of vehicles. So then it becomes just a discretionary decision for you as to, for us, absent any concern about overhanging and blocking the sidewalk, there is no compelling reason not to allow the display of vehicles there. The concern was that there wasn't enough room at the time.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions of staff at this point?
I just have one. On here, then if we approve the car thing, they'll go here? Or where?
John, if you could, thank you. There's 2 different buildings that are being displayed here. The newly constructed and renovated building that Bennett's Auto has, their front door, if you will, is this building here.
Right.
This building is to the north of their primary sales lot, but it's part of this zoning lot, it's part of this property, and there's some green space out here that will be maintained and enhanced with some shrubs and trees. So the area in question is the area between the existing building here and Ohio Street. If that clears it up for you.
So then this little picture up here on the top is what's going to go in these two planters in front of the windows on
Exactly.
either
That's
side
a
of-
blow up of those two boxes that you see labeled as planter
Okay.
on that plan.
So as we discussed earlier, we work with redevelopment sites or retrofits, sometimes remodeling or retrofits of existing schools. And so the landscaping regulations give us flexibility to work with sites that already have existing developed conditions, so we can avoid the extraordinary cost of cutting up existing concrete and things like that and trying to restore it back to green space. What it does not give me the authority to do is simply to ignore or waive the requirement to do some front yard landscaping. So staff has accepted this plan from landscape consultants as fulfilling the requirements to provide some additional front yard landscaping. So that is not an item of your decision. Your decision is based on the plan and what we have come to an agreement on. Do you have any concerns about Bennett's displaying vehicles between the front of their dealership building and Ohio Street in the area between the front entrance facing Ohio and Ohio Street? So John, if you could go back to the aerial photo. Or we'll, so the majority of the landscaping we're talking about is in front of this building here. What you cannot see is the expanded service area drop-off, which is right here. So the planters would be in a recessed area in front of the building, and then our green space that we're achieving is up in this area here. So the landscaping that's being proposed and the planters that are being proposed will in no way interfere with the placement and display of vehicles there. So then it's just a decision for you all whether you want to lift the restriction you placed in 2012 and allow vehicles to be displayed there. And I think at our last meeting, your minutes reflect some of the importance of having that as a display area for the applicant.
Thank you, staff. Do we have any comments by the applicants at this time? Please come forward. State your name, please.
Jeff Bennett, 651 South Ohio. I just wanted to make note, we have done, I think, all of it, except they had to special order 2 trees, but everything else is done. So we don't have to wait till spring or anything like that. Landscaping Consultants was working with Dusty, and he managed to get it all done.
Okay. Does anyone here have any questions of the applicant, please? All right, seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing that we have no interested citizens in the audience, I guess we'll forego any comments by them. Bringing it back to the Board of Zoning Appeals. Anyone have any discussion with regards to the overall situation here?
Do you want, is this one motion to approve the parking there or to approve the landscape changes or?
No, you're not, that is a staff item
Okay.
as it relates to the landscape changes. What you would be doing is in 2012, you approved a setback variance subject to the condition that I think the specific condition was no vehicles may be parked or displayed between the covered entrance and the Ohio Street property line. So what you would do today is to consider whether you would like to lift or repeal that restriction as it relates to variance application 1213A, which would leave the variance intact, would just eliminate the condition that was attached to the variance. So on page 1 of your report, you had a special condition in November 2012, and the request that is before you today is to consider the repeal of that condition if you think that the reasons for it originally are no longer in play. And what we have indicated as a staff, that our primary concern was that at only 17 feet, given the length of some vehicles, that there might not be room to actually fit a vehicle between the setback and the Ohio right-of-way line, but at 19 feet, that is the standard length of a parking space.
So does that take care of how many vehicles will be in front? I mean, is that a concern, or can we say limit to two?
It is within your discretion, and that's why we have the term consideration of possible amendments. One amendment would be to say we just repeal the condition and they can display whatever will fit there, or you can modify the condition to say to allow the display of no more than X number of vehicles between the covered entrance and Ohio Street property line. That is, it's entirely within your authority to either modify the condition by allowing the display of up to X number of vehicles, or to completely repeal it, which means it would be at their discretion, not yours.
Any further discussion from any of the
Yes,
board members?
Mr. Bennett has that.
Mr. Bennett, you'd like to come back and address?
Wrong one.
Please state your name for the record, please.
Ralph Bennett, 651 South Ohio. In reference to the parking of the cars in front, we're not going to try to park a big truck over there, or a 3/4 ton, or even a big long bed half-ton. I mean, it wouldn't be smart at all. It'd be blocking too much of the frontage of the building. But we would like to be able to park, maybe if we got 3 little sports cars, you know, you could put 3 and be lots of room left. If you put a type of car that I'm driving right now, Encore, or some of the other smaller cars, it's just an ideal display there. But we definitely would not ever put anything up there that would obstruct the view of the front of our building, or yet in case somebody wanted to come in the front door instead of the south door, we're not going to make it so they got to walk around a big truck or anything like that. You know, we'll use good judgment on what we do display there. But I would like to be able to put at least 3, sometimes small cars, but I wouldn't put 3 big cars up there. You know, just I'd like to have a little flexibility. So, but yeah, for 2 trucks, but there's not room for 3. But I really don't think we ought to put trucks up there. Maybe occasionally, you know. Huh? You don't know what we're going to put up. Yeah, okay. And he's running the show down there, so whatever. But when it comes to blocking the deal, we're not going to do that. We're not going to abuse it. I'll put it that way.
Any of the board have any questions for Mr. Bennett?
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Excuse me.
It's all right.
There's only so much, I don't know that we can have the exact measurements for you, but there's only so much square footage there, so to a degree, it's self-limiting. I mean, you can only accommodate so many vehicles within a certain square foot area, so it's not like they're going to be 20.
Having heard from the applicants and staff and our questions, do I hear anyone making a motion to this portion of the agenda?
Well, I'll make a motion. I'm not sure what I want to say, but it's fine to go ahead at this point. So should I just say that I move that we drop the variance that we, or
No,
the
if
condition that we added before.
Yeah, I think the correct word would be repeal.
Thank you.
Repeal the condition of approval that was established in November 2012.
I so move.
I second that.
Any further discussion? The only discussion I would have with regards to that is, do we want to make any sort of amendment to the number of vehicles that could be placed in that space? I would feel more comfortable if we had limited to only 2, as I've seen 2 cars parked there before, and it was not overtaking that area.
I thought about that, and I guess I'll go pick it if they put too many vehicles there at this point. I think, we've had a good discussion about it. They're sick of it. We have spent enough time on it that if they abuse it, I guess they do. I'm fine with it.
Just hopes that they're using their best judgment. Okay. All
I'm
right.
gonna call Mr. Bennett Senior if there's too many vehicles out there, and tell him to take care of his son.
All right.
I might need some help.
Yeah.
Board does have a motion and a second on the floor. Discussion is passed.
So the motion, as I read it, and for Crystal's benefit, is to repeal the condition of approval attached to the approval of application V12-13 in November of 2012.
Is that correct? All right, we understand it that way. Thank you. I will call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. This matter is closed at
This
this
matter is closed, and everything now is going to be between staff and the applicant. We won't involve you any further.
All right.
However, we do have an application filed for your December meeting, and it is a request to establish a bed and breakfast establishment at 417 East Country Club Road. And it's the house sometimes known as the house from the film Picnic. And so there's a request to establish a bed and breakfast there, and we have a process by which we notify neighboring property owners, give them a chance to comment on that, and you as a board to review that before they can establish that bed and breakfast. So that will be your agenda item for your December meeting.
What date is that December meeting?
I want to say it's the 17th.
17th.
Yeah. So we'll get it done well before the holidays. But Planning Commission will be 1st and 15th, and then BZA will occur on the 17th.
Very good. Any other business to come before this board today?
We would just inform you as board members that there has been an effort made and consultants hired to develop a housing study and strategy plan for housing in the city of Salina, and that was held from 10 o'clock to 3 o'clock today, and the idea is to develop some initiatives moving forward to help re-establish and strengthen some of the infill neighborhoods, and from some of the concepts and things that were involved, some of them dealing with tight sites and redevelopment of sites. It is something that could involve the board, because there could be projects put forward that may involve some creative site layouts and things like that that might involve setback variances or things of that nature. So some of the concepts that were put forward are housing designs and products that maybe don't match up with our standards that we have in our normal residential districts. So there could be some things from that would result in applications coming before you next year as some of those move forward. One of our challenges in North Salina and the older parts of town is that many of the lots were platted with some pretty small sizes. And so if you're doing redevelopment, sometimes you have to be creative on your setbacks and your
Side yards.
side yards. So I don't know if Owen had any other observations from what you learned or didn't learn today, but
No.
there were a lot of ideas that were
A lot of great
percolating.
ideas, a lot of great visioning. They will take creative zoning and rezoning, but it certainly would be beneficial for the city of Salina.
Yeah, because we have always tried to recognize that when you have the older established areas, sometimes you have to be, the formulas that might work in your suburban type housing developments don't always work when you're trying to retrofit infill lots. So it could result in some items coming before you just for that reason, but that would be a good thing because that means there's activity happening in the inner parts of the community. So we will look forward to seeing you in December and talking about a bed and breakfast case.
Very good. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.